Janai.
Hey Peter, let's get to it because I already know sparks are
We
gonna
gotta
fly
talk.
for this
We
one.
gotta talk. We gotta talk about RFPs, requests for proposals. Where do you want to start, Janai? Because I have a lot to say.
I want you to start just where you are. Let us know where you are on this topic.
This is going to get us fired or get me fired or whatever the case may be. I don't think organizations should be issuing RFPs as broadly as often as they do. I think they put them. It's like casting a huge net, and on the other side of it, it's like investing in the lottery. The chances
Mm,
of getting selected are so slim. You invest a lot of time in putting together thoughtful proposals. And maybe again, this is just my experience in the 20 years of doing this work, but I'm getting more and more reluctant to respond to RFPs just because it just seems like a kind of a lazy way of finding consultants. Is that heresy?
it's one of those yes, yes, and statements because, you know, obviously we've had time now to have the frustrating experience of going through like the RFP process and the interview process to come up empty-handed. At the same time, I understand the value of RFPs in sourcing or attempting to source from a broader network. So I don't know about in Chicago, but in Detroit, the reality is there have been some golden child consultants, over the years that I noticed in my work. And if you weren't one of those golden children, like how would you even get a chance to be noticed if a process wasn't opened up to an RFP process? Like, are they just going to tap their homeboy or homegirl, or are they going to broaden the pool of potential consultants?
Yes, yes, and totally agree with you. And I think the question is organizations are those, whether it's foundations, are those people who tend to use consultants on a more regular basis, perhaps than other ones, I think should have a process where they're looking outward and where they are having conversations. And we've had many informal conversations with folks at different foundations that we have no direct business experience with, just sort of getting to know you conversations and whatnot. I think that should be part of the regular process. But when I think it comes to like inviting someone into to do a position is doing your homework and understanding what are those organizations that you're seeking, what are those qualifications that you're seeking that are fundamental to what you want. And my guess is there's only going to be two or three organizations really that fit that bill and or that you have a trusted enough relationship that you're going to feel comfortable. And I think that's the other thing is that RFPs, and they put them out there and hey, it's an open door and anyone can apply. Yeah, but at the end of the day, at least in my experience, people hire you because they've developed some sense of trust in you. And whether that's based on previous experience, based on a relationship, or based on relationships with people that they know, there has to be some trust quotient there. So it's very difficult to get hired by anyone, no matter what your qualifications are, if you don't have some mechanism for establishing that trust. And if organizations aren't going to invest in developing those with potential consultants, yeah, it does make it very hard. But I don't think, encouraging 100 different, consultants to apply to your job is doing anyone a favor and is necessarily opening a door to people who otherwise wouldn't get through that door. It's what it's basically doing is holding up the promise of something that they're very unlikely of ever achieving if they don't have some kind of mechanism for trust with that organization.
I think what you bring up about trust is super interesting because as I think about trust, and you talked about the different ways in which that can be established. I mean, a lot of trust, at least from an outside looking in, comes from brand recognition and brand value, even more than the quality of like, hey, I know you, I actually know the quality of your work. You look good, you sound good, such and such has worked with you before. You're just known. You're gonna parachute in, do what you do. So, I don't know about this trust equation.
No, I hear what you're saying, and a lot of times trust can be, oh well, that entity worked for X, Y, and Z, therefore they should be, trust can be in sort of imbued that way by sort of relation. But in terms of like, when you issue an RFP and you put it on LinkedIn and you want everyone to apply to it, like what are you asking people to do? And as part of what you're asking people to do is to do the work that is to compensate for work that you're not doing, which is going out there and looking broadly and making sure you're looking at a diverse selection of potential consultants and selecting three or four that might, hey, I think these are folks that I could see hiring. Let me invite those people to respond to this job that I potentially have. I think the other side of this is RFPs, is how to write a really good RFP. And this is a topic for a whole long webinar, because I think when you write it from the organizational point of view and seeing it from the consultant point of view, there's oftentimes major disconnects as we have lack of information, lack of clarity of information, too much information, too much predetermined. It's a very difficult thing to get right, because you kind of have to see it from both sides. And I've been on both sides of it. You've been on both sides of it. Maybe this is something we have to think about doing, is how to write a good consulting RFP, because we've seen lots of them, and very, very, very few what I would consider good, even though the intention could be good, even though we like the person, even though they're a super intelligent person, et cetera, et cetera.
One thing that surprised me is, so as we were doing this national landscape scan with a local organization, one of the organizations that we interviewed, actually based in Chicago, talked about how one of the most challenging aspects of all the programming that they offer is RFP support. So, working with small to mid-sized organizations, helping them create RFPs to then help them connect with consultants. And it's interesting because this organization does a lot. They manage a lot, but then the executive director talked about that RFP and consultant piece being among the most challenging things that they actually work on.
100%. And sometimes I think RFPs are kind of like resumes. They're reductionist type documents, and it's really hard to get a sense, both in terms of what's needed as well as, someone responding to it. So it's like we're kind of shooting in the dark oftentimes when we're responding to it. And I do wonder if folks, before they issue RFPs, there are kind of key questions that they need to ask themselves. One of which I think is, what's the problem? What's the fundamental problem we're trying to solve? Because a lot of times RFPs are for services, they're for solutions, and there's nothing about, oftentimes what's omitted is like, hey, this is the problem that we're trying to solve, whether that's intentional or unintentional, doesn't really matter. But oftentimes I see an RFP, oh, we need a strategic plan. Oh, we need this communication thing. Oh, we need this. And again, it's for a product, and the problem behind that product is oftentimes kind of concealed or unacknowledged. And it'd be really useful to know what exactly that problem is, that challenge might be, because there could be other ways of addressing it.
Yeah, this goes back to a conversation that we had maybe a couple months ago now, where I was like, at the end of the day, the heart of, I think, our work and really what our sector needs is truth seeing and truth telling. You got to see the truth. Like, and often we need help with that, right? Like when we're seeing ourselves, it's a distorted perspective. So how do we actually start to be willing to ask questions and create space to interrogate what we think we know, which we think we know, we want this, but not the why behind it.
Yeah, and I think it can be hard, right? It's hard to, when you're dedicated to doing something, you're kind of in the trenches. It can be hard to have that self-reflexive kind of conversation when you're issuing an RFP or to find that truth. It takes time. It takes like stepping away sometimes from what you're doing, in order to find that. But I totally agree that I think oftentimes um, we don't do that enough, and folks aren't given the space to do that enough. Any last words on RFPs? I think I've sort of said my piece about them.
I think the last word on that is courage. So
Mm.
one, for the folks who are issuing RFPs, have the courage to look honestly at yourself. What are you doing? What process are you inviting people into? And is it equitable and inclusive if actually you're just extracting labor or encouraging people to offer labor that's not going to amount to much? And then to us, to the consultants, let's be courageous enough to say, actually, I'm good on that. I'm not going to participate in this. But if you want to have a conversation with me, do the work and connect with me.
Completely agree. We'll leave it there until next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.